Rain slid down the classroom windows like sleepy teardrops, blurring the world outside into watery colors. Thunder grumbled softly overhead, as if the clouds were muttering secrets. Inside, the only sound was the quiet scratch of pencils and the slow ticking of the big clock on the wall. The desks were lined up like little ships, each carrying a child through the long sea of schoolwork. In the very last row, near the radiator that hissed with warm steam, sat a small desk that always seemed just a little different from the others. It had a scratch across the top that looked like a lightning bolt and a drawer that never quite closed all the way. That desk belonged to a boy named Milo. He sat hunched over his math sheet, pencil tapping against the paper, but his eyes kept drifting to the window. Something about the storm made his skin prickle. His paper was mostly blank. Only one problem was filled in, and the numbers wobbled like they didn't want to be there. But Milo wasn't worried about getting in trouble. His real worry was the strange feeling beneath his desk, like a whisper brushing the soles of his shoes. Suddenly, the pencil snapped in his hand. The sharp crack made his heart leap. As he bent to pick up the broken piece, he noticed it. The drawer, the one that always stuck, was open, just a sliver. A light, soft and golden, shimmered from the gap. Milo blinked. There was no lamp inside, no flashlight, just his extra notebooks and some old homework sheets. Yet the light flickered gently, like candle flame beneath water. And then, from deep inside the drawer, something moved. Milo's fingers hesitated just above the drawer. The shimmer was still there, rippling softly like moonlight caught in a puddle. Around him, the classroom remained unchanged. The steady ticking, the quiet scribbles, the faint sigh of rain. But under his desk, something was very much alive. Carefully, he pulled the drawer open. Instead of stopping like it always did, it glided all the way out with a sound like wind brushing through leaves. Inside were his notebooks, yes, but something else too. A single sheet of paper lay flat on top, completely blank except for one tiny glowing dot in the center. It pulsed gently, a warm golden glow that filled the drawer and made Milo's face light up as though he were leaning into a summer lantern. He reached out and touched the glowing dot. The moment his finger made contact, the world tilted. Not sideways, not down, but inward. With a soft whoosh, the paper expanded, stretching like a sheet of cloth pulled open by invisible hands. The drawer deepened, widening into a tunnel of swirling parchment and light. Milo barely had time to gasp before the desk pulled him in. Down he fell, past fluttering pages and floating equations, past scribbled drawings that twisted into flying birds and dancing numbers. The tunnel whispered with voices that weren't quite voices, like pages being turned by the wind. When he landed, it was not with a thud, but with the softest puff, like falling onto a bed of moss. He sat up, blinking. Around him was a room unlike any he'd ever seen. The walls were made entirely of paper layers and layers of old homework sheets, spelling tests, and story drafts. Words moved across the pages like marching ants, reshaping themselves into sentences and pictures. A giant pencil leaned against one corner, its tip glowing like a torch. Milo stood slowly. The floor beneath him crackled slightly but held firm. In the center of the room stood a figure tall, with robes made of tangled notebook paper and a beard like stringy yarn. The figure raised a hand, and the swirling pages behind him stilled. He didn't speak, but the words formed in the air between them, clear as if they had been written in invisible ink, and suddenly revealed, "Welcome, Milo. You have entered the realm of forgotten work." Milo's heart beat faster. The words rearranged themselves as the figure stepped forward, his eyes twinkling like stars through spectacles made of magnifying glasses. "You are here because you listened." Most never noticed the whisper beneath the homework, but you did. Milo didn't know how to reply, but something inside him deep, where wonder and worry lived side by side, felt pulled forward. The figure pointed toward a spiraling staircase made of stacked books. "Come, there is much to remember." They walked together, the room shifting around them. As they climbed, Milo noticed that the papers along the walls weren't just any assignments. They were his stories, his drawings, even his mistakes. One paper showed a math test he had given up on, the numbers fading at the edges. Another showed a poem he had written about clouds but never turned in. The poem glowed gently, as if pleased to be seen. At the top of the staircase, they stepped into another chamber vast and round, like the inside of a snow globe. In the center floated a strange device. It looked like a compass, but its needle spun wildly. pointing not north or south, but toward papers and glowing orbs that floated around the room. The robed figure gestured again, and a glowing orb floated down. Inside was an image of Milo, sitting at his desk, head on his arms, the light of sunset falling across his paper. "You have left many things unfinished," the words said, "but within your unfinished work are seeds of wonder, hidden magic, forgotten treasures." The orb burst into golden light, and from its shimmer spilled a paper bird that flew loops around Milo's head before perching on his shoulder. The figure turned, pointing toward a shadowy corner of the chamber. There, something stirred. A shape rose tall and twisted, made of crumpled pages and scrawled out mistakes. It had no face, only scribbles, and its voice came as a harsh scratching sound. "The forgotten grow restless. They seek to erase all that was never completed." The paper bird on Milo's shoulder chirped once, sharply. The compass on the table pulsed, and the robed figure's beard fluttered as if in a breeze. "You, Milo, must recover what was lost. You must return to your world and finish what you once began, or the forgotten will rise through the cracks in the desks and steal away all unfinished dreams." Milo's legs trembled. He wasn't brave. He forgot things. He got bored. He made mistakes. But something about the way the papers moved, the way his poem had glowed, made him want to try. The figure handed him a folded paper star. Its corners were soft, and its glow was steady. "This will guide you. When the light fades, time is nearly gone. Go now." With a rush of wind and whispering pages, Milo was swept upward again. The tunnel folded, curled, and dropped him gently back into his seat, just as the bell rang. The drawer was closed. His paper lay on the desk blank, except for one golden dot. This time, Milo picked up his pencil and began to write. The words flowed like the river he had once drawn on a spelling worksheet, winding and alive. His math answers came next, clear and certain. His fingers didn't tremble now. The desk didn't whisper anymore, but deep inside the drawer, the golden light pulsed slowly, waiting. That night at home, Milo didn't hide his homework under his bed. He set it on the table and smoothed the pages carefully. As he worked, he felt a warmth beside him. He looked up, but no one was there, yet the air felt full of turning pages and softly spoken ideas. And when he made a mistake, he didn't crumple the paper or groan. He smiled, gently erased, and began again. Because he now knew every unfinished thing was a doorway waiting to be opened. Every scribble, every sketch, every half-solved problem, each one held a secret. And beneath it all, just waiting to be discovered, lived a world of wonder. Days passed, and Milo's desk no longer creaked or whispered. But the golden dot on his homework still flickered quietly, like a secret star waiting to be followed. He finished each assignment carefully now, but it wasn't just to avoid trouble. He felt something more like every answer, every sentence, was a step forward on a path he could not yet see. One Thursday afternoon, as storm clouds curled like dark dragons above the schoolyard, the air inside the classroom thickened. The lights dimmed, even though no one had touched the switch. The teacher's voice faded like a radio signal being pulled away, and Milo's desk began to glow. He looked around. The other students didn't seem to notice. Their pencils moved, eyes fixed on papers, but something wasn't right. The golden dot on Milo's homework had vanished. In its place, a dark blotch spread slowly across the page. It moved. Like ink that had been spilled by an invisible hand, the blotch grew into a swirling shadow, twisting into crooked shapes. Milo's breath caught. This was not part of the realm of forgotten work. This was something else, something darker. The drawer beneath his desk opened with a loud, aching groan, but this time no light spilled out. Instead, a cold wind hissed up from the opening, carrying the scent of dusty chalkboards and burnt erasers. From the shadows rose the figure he had seen before, the one made of crumpled papers and angry scribbles. The forgotten had returned. They weren't whispering now. They were snarling. Pages ripped through the air like angry birds. Desks began to tremble. The windows shook. Children still wrote, their eyes glazed and unaware. The figure pointed a jagged finger at Milo. He knew what it meant. He had been warned. He had started to change, to try, to finish what he began. But there were still so many things he hadn't gone back to, projects left half done, thoughts abandoned in the middle of sentences. The forgotten fed on those. And now they were coming for him. The classroom twisted. Walls melted into paper. Desks grew legs and skittered into corners. The floor opened like a torn notebook, and Milo fell through once more. But this time, he landed in a very different place. The realm of forgotten work was in ruins. Pages blew like leaves across the floor. The compass from the glowing chamber was cracked, its needle spinning uselessly. The staircase of books had toppled. The robed figure was nowhere to be seen. In the sky above, the swirling shape of the forgotten stretched like storm clouds, raining ink and scraps of erased dreams. The golden paper bird was gone. Milo stood in the center of it all, heart pounding. Around him, pieces of his past drifted like smoke. A drawing he had crumpled last year. A poem he'd hidden because he thought it sounded silly. The model volcano had never finished. They circled him, then sank into the floor. He was alone, and the forgotten moved closer. Their voices scratched like pencils dragged too hard across paper. They told him he was just a boy who couldn't finish anything, that his ideas were soft, unfinished fluff, that dreams left too long in drawers always faded. Milo shook his head, but the words pushed into him like a cold wind. He turned to run, but the floor curled upward like a closing book. He called out in his mind for the robed figure, for the golden bird, for anyone. Nothing answered, except a light, soft, small, steady. It came from his pocket. He reached in and pulled out the folded paper star the figure had once given him. Its glow had faded, yes, but now it pulsed once, gently, like a heartbeat. Milo held it tight. He thought of the story he had just finished that morning, the one about a brave mushroom who explored the forest to find his lost spore. He thought of the picture he had drawn of the mushroom's little house under a fern. He had finished it. He thought of the poem he had written about wind, the way it whispered through leaves, the way it curled through hair. He had finished that too. He thought of all the little things he'd returned to, not perfectly, but fully. The paper star grew warmer in his hand. Milo took a deep breath, then opened the star. Inside, words he hadn't seen before glowed in curling script. What is remembered cannot be stolen. The ground steadied. The swirling sky paused. The forgotten hesitated. Milo stood taller. He remembered the poem he had once whispered to himself on the way home from school. He spoke it now, not with his voice, but in his thoughts. The realm listened. A golden glow spread from his feet, rippling outward. From the broken floor, his forgotten ideas rose like bubbles from deep water. His stories, his sketches, his daydreams all took shape and spun around him. He wasn't alone. The golden paper bird returned, wings stretched wide. It circled him once, then flew high into the sky. The robed figure stepped from the shadows, beard blowing like ribbon in the rising wind. The forgotten screamed, but their shapes flickered. For every memory Milo reclaimed, their grip weakened. He moved forward. He spoke the ending of the mushroom story. He recited the wind poem. He hummed the tune he had once dreamed for a song, but never finished. And one by one, the shadows fell. The dark figure at their center let out a final, scribbled roar, and then crumpled inward, like an old test paper soaked in rain. The realm brightened. Walls straightened, books returned. Pages lifted and settled gently back into place. The robed figure bowed, his eyes shining behind his magnifying lenses. The compass repaired itself, its needle pointing straight and true toward Milo. The words floated once more between them. You remembered. You returned. You finished what you began. Milo smiled, and this time, he knew it was not the end. It was the beginning. The paper star folded itself gently and returned to his palm. The golden bird perched on his shoulder again, and the golden light lifted him, carried him, and returned him softly to his desk just as the final bell rang. The classroom was bright. The storm had passed. His paper was complete, every answer written, every sentence whole. But more than that, Milo felt full, like something important had settled inside him. Something warm. Something true. He gathered his homework, packed his bag, and left the room. Behind him, the desk sat still, silent, but deep within its drawer, the light shimmered gently, waiting for the next story, the next dream, the next chance to be remembered. Outside, the world looked the same puddles on the sidewalk, children shouting as they ran home, and the sky streaked with soft pink from the setting sun. But to Milo, everything felt different. It was as if colors had grown deeper, sounds more musical, and the space around him wider, filled with something unseen but strong, like invisible wings lifting the edges of the day. He walked home slowly, one hand in his pocket, fingers curled around the paper star. It was no longer glowing, yet its shape was still firm and warm, like a memory made solid. With each step, Milo thought of the realm, the glowing walls of pages, the towering compass, the golden bird, and the quiet strength of the robed figure. And he remembered the darkness too, the forgotten, with their jagged voices and curling ink. At home, the table was already set. The usual buzz of the kitchen filled the air pans clinking, water boiling, and the soft sound of music on the radio. Milo placed his backpack gently beside his chair and pulled out his homework. He opened it not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He wanted to see it with new eyes. The page was filled now with tidy lines and thoughtful words. Nothing fancy, just honest work. Work he had finished. He smiled. Then he reached for another sheet, one that had been folded and half forgotten at the bottom of his folder. A story he'd started long ago. He unfolded it carefully. A wrinkled dragon stared back at him from a pencil sketch in the corner, waiting for its tale to be told. Milo found a clean pencil and began to write. In the days that followed, things changed in small but quiet ways. His teacher noticed first. She didn't say anything, but she watched Milo as he leaned forward in his seat, brow furrowed not with confusion but focus. He didn't always have the right answers, but he stayed with the questions longer. He erased carefully, rewrote with care, and often smiled softly to himself, as if remembering something only he could see. Other children noticed too. A girl named Lynn, who usually kept her stories tucked away, saw Milo writing during free time and began to write beside him. They didn't speak, but their pencils moved with matching rhythm. At recess, Milo brought out an old notebook full of sketches. Some were messy, others barely started, but now he began finishing them, one by one. In the corners of his room, little stacks of paper began to grow. Some were drawings, others poems or riddles. None were perfect, but each was complete. And with each finished piece, Milo felt something grow in him, a quiet confidence, not loud or showy, but deep, like roots taking hold in rich soil. He began noticing things he hadn't before, the way the wind rattled the windows before a storm, the patterns that formed in sidewalk cracks, the way a sentence could end with surprise or a soft smile. Ideas came more easily now, like friendly birds landing on his shoulder instead of fluttering just out of reach. But sometimes, he still heard them, the forgotten. Not as monsters, not anymore. Sometimes, when he was tired or frustrated, when he wanted to give up halfway through a drawing or close a book before the last page, he felt them hovering nearby, a shiver, a flicker, a shadow in the corner of a thought. But now he understood. The forgotten didn't grow because people made mistakes. They grew when people gave up completely, when they stopped caring, when they believed their ideas didn't matter. Milo had learned that even a half-written sentence held magic. Even a scribbled picture could lead to something beautiful, if only he chose to finish it. He began helping others too. When Lynn grew frustrated with her spelling story, Milo offered to help her find an ending. When his younger brother wanted to give up building his block tower, Milo sat beside him, stacking gently, showing him how to stay patient. When his mother paused over her grocery list, muttering that she'd never remember everything, Milo brought her a bright orange sticky note and drew a cheerful pineapple in the corner. It made her laugh, and she finished the list with a smile. The golden paper star now lived in a little wooden box on his shelf, next to his favorite books. It no longer glowed, but sometimes, in the quiet evening light, Milo thought it shimmered just a little, like it was watching. He knew he might never return to the realm of forgotten work. Or maybe he would, one day, when he least expected it. But even if he didn't, the realm was part of him now. He carried it inside every time he finished something he had once left behind, every time he helped someone else believe in their own unfinished dreams. The desk at school never whispered again, but Milo no longer needed it to. He had found the secret beneath his homework, and it wasn't just magic or mystery. It was something even greater. It was the truth that every child carried within them an endless world of imagination, waiting patiently in the corners of pages and the pauses between words. A world that could only be unlocked with bravery, with patience, and with the choice to see things through. And though Milo didn't always know what to write, or how a drawing should end, or what came next in his stories, he knew one thing for sure: he would keep going. Because the secret beneath his homework had never really been hidden. It had always been there, in every sentence waiting to be finished, in every idea waiting to be remembered, in every child who dares to believe that what they begin is worth completing. And so, each day, as the sun rose and the pencils were sharpened, Milo took his seat, opened his notebook, and began.